This video will detail some of the special rules that players can use to give them an advantage over their opponent. One of the core components of this game are tactics cards. Tactics cards represent the initiative and expertise of your frontline commanders. As new commanders rotate to your front, they push away outdated thinking while bringing in new ideas and strategies. Tactics cards are one piece of information in this game you want to keep completely secret until it is too late for your enemy to react. Every planning phase, you always draw one new tactics card. You draw one extra tactics card for every command headquarters unit you have face up on the board. Additional tactics cards can also be purchased directly for industrial logistics in the planning phase. There are three types of tactics cards: strategy cards, command cards, and support cards. Generally, strategy tactics modify how units attack, defend, or interact with the battlefield. Command tactics reflect leadership and morale of your units and leading officers. Support tactics represent good practices and improvements to your troops as well as material support for your forces. There are multiple different tactics cards, but each player may only ever hold up to 2 of each type of card. This means players are limited to holding a maximum of 6 tactics cards in total. The cards you keep are critical for any successful strategy. A single good tactic may be discarded in favor of several lesser tactics that together create a winning strategy, or a predictable, overplayed tactic may be replaced for a new and unexpected one. How you mix and match tactics is a key component of your strategy. Tactics are not all positive. All armies start the game with 3 unique traditions. Traditions are older, weaker versions of tactics that have entrapped the thinking of your senior commanders. Traditions cause negative effects on your forces. Victory may be impossible while they are in play. Despite this, tactics cards and traditions can never be voluntarily discarded. This means you can't discard a tradition in a planning phase until you have something better to swap it out for. Traditions count toward your 6-card maximum the whole time you're holding them. Traditions are always visible to your opponent and must always be in play. Traditions are crippling ideas which can resurface in the most inopportune times, replacing well-developed tactics when you least expect it. If after drawing cards in the planning phase, you have in your hand more than 2 of a single type of tactic, you must discard one tactic of that type. In this way, you can discard the traditions that are plaguing your troops with new and innovative ideas. However, discarded tactics cards are always shuffled back into your tactics deck and can be redrawn in subsequent turns. If you are unfortunate enough to draw a tradition in the planning phase, it must be kept and played immediately. Traditions are always kept for the turn they are drawn, while a useful tactic may have to be discarded to make room for it. A drawn tradition can never be used to discard another tradition card. Having 2 of the same tradition does not compound effects, but does represent a very entrenched idea that is difficult to be rid of. While drawing several tactics cards a turn exposes you to multiple new and useful tactics, it also increases your chance of drawing additional traditions. For example, a player has 1 strategy, command, and support tradition at the start of the game. The player has 2 face-up command headquarters units on their side of the board at the start of the planning phase. This means the player draws 3 tactics cards in the planning phase. 1 base tactic card, and 2 tactics cards for each of the command headquarters units. The player draws 2 new strategy cards and 1 support card. The support card is added to the player's hand, who now has 2 total support cards. However, the player now has 3 strategy cards in their hand and must discard only 1 card to stay at the 2-card maximum. The player chooses to discard their strategy tradition from play. The player then starts the planning phase with 2 good strategy tactics cards with a total of 5 cards in their hand. The discarded strategy tradition is reshuffled into the tactics deck, and if it is redrawn in the next turn, one of the player's good strategy tactics will have to be discarded. Each tactic card is played in unique ways and has unique effects. Some modify the whole army, while some are specific to individual units. Keep the tactics you choose secret until you play them to maximize the disruption and damage you can apply to the enemy player. Tactics can be chained together to cause even greater effects. Pay attention to those opportunities to synergize your tactics. Some tactics cards last for a single action, others for a whole phase, while some powerful tactics cards can affect a full turn. Tactics cards may be played at any point in the appropriate phase as described on the card itself. The only exception to this is, once shock dice are rolled for an attack, tactics cards may not be played until that attack action is completed. Otherwise, you can wait for your opponent to spend supply to make an attack or move action, declare their intentions to you, or state they are done with their phase before you play your tactics card. If you forget to play your tactics card in the prior phase, there are no do-overs or redos. The tactics cards played are in response to player actions, so likewise players cannot voluntarily cancel an action they have declared after seeing a played tactics card. Tactics cards and traditions are always played face up, and remain face up for your opponent to see while they are in play. Once they are no longer in play, you return the card to your hand. A single tactics card may also only ever be played once per turn. Once the card has been played, it may not be played again until the following turn. If a tactics card may be played in multiple phases, you must choose the phase you play the card in. If you use the card too early, you may not have it when you need it. Save it for too long, and you may not find a use for the card. Exercising patience with your tactics is a strategy all on its own that players will have to master. Remember, multiple tactics cards may be played and chained together to create potent combos. Speaking of secrecy, Fog of War is one of the more fun systems in this game. Fog of War is how you can bluff your opponent and keep your unit moves and plans secret. You can bait out tactics cards with strong ruses, or amass a large number of artillery guns, only for them to turn out to be made of nothing but wood and dreams. Whenever you bring a unit onto the board, at setup or later when it comes in from reserves, you choose whether to place it revealed, face up, showing exactly what it is, or as Fog of War, face down, hiding its real identity and strength. At the start of the game, when you are placing your units, it is a good idea to keep most of your units in a Fog of War state. Fog of War units always use their own separate, more cautious movement profile, even if the real unit underneath would normally move faster. This is listed on the game screen for quick reference. The trade-off for secrecy is speed. Also, units in a Fog of War state do not benefit from any unit special rules until they are revealed. Keep in mind that while the enemy player doesn't know what your unit is, you do. Units are still bound by their movement restrictions even if they are in a Fog of War state. For example, artillery units still cannot occupy trench sectors, even if they are in a Fog of War state. A Fog of War unit is automatically revealed in a few situations. A Fog of War unit is immediately revealed if it declares any attack, if an enemy declares a melee attack against it, or if any source would deal at least 1 strength damage to the Fog of War unit after considering the Fog of War unit's total entrenchment value. Or a Fog of War unit may be revealed at any point by the controlling player should they choose. Once a Fog of War unit is revealed, it fights using its real stats, entrenchment, and special rules from then on. Fog of War units have their own entrenchment profile, even if the unit underneath would have more or less entrenchment. This profile is only ever used to see if the unit is revealed. Once the unit is ever revealed, the unit always calculates damage using the unit's real entrenchment profile, not the Fog of War profile. Fog of War units are subject to a few restrictions. Fog of War units can never carry supply while they move, and they reduce your industrial logistics income by 1 each casualty phase as normal. Ruses can be purchased cheaply, which can be placed on the board. Ruses are immediately removed from the board if they are revealed, and do not count as casualties in the casualty phase if they are removed for any reason. A ruse still requires upkeep but is useful for bluffing your opponent, making an attack look looming or a defensive line stronger than it otherwise is. Used well, Fog of War lets you mass a fake threat somewhere on the board, draw your opponent's attention or tactics cards, only to then reveal the ruse was a bluff the whole time. There is one more significant type of attack worth knowing about: gas attacks. Any attack with the word gas in its name is always a ranged attack that targets a sector, not a specific unit. If any unit is entitled to make a gas attack, it may always target a sector, even if the unit classification of that unit would normally not permit that. Instead of applying regular shock damage or effects such as causing a crater, gas attacks place yellow gas tokens. When making a gas attack, 1 yellow gas token is placed in a sector for every point of shock damage dealt, regardless of any entrenchment or units present in that sector. Here's the nasty part. Any unit sitting in a sector with any gas tokens at the end of any phase except the planning and casualty phase could take strength damage based on the presence of that gas. A unit sitting in a sector with gas tokens takes 1 shock damage for each gas token present. Entrenchment bonuses provided by trenches and craters do not help against gas attacks. Units only receive entrenchment provided by fortifications and from their unit profile. For example, if at the end of the bombardment phase a unit is sitting in a sector with 4 gas tokens, it will take 4 shock damage at the end of the phase. In this case, the unit has no entrenchment bonus from the unit profile, but there is 1 fortification present in the sector. The unit will then take a total of 3 strength damage before the turn concludes. If the unit somehow survives this attack but fails to move in the following assault phase, the unit will then take 4 shock damage at the end of that phase, again suffering 3 strength damage. While gas may not kill immediately, it is nonetheless devastating. Gas tokens also count as craters for movement and supply purposes. A heavily gassed sector gets expensive, or even impossible to move troops or supply through. Supply itself can never be damaged from the effects of gas tokens, and extra strength damage after a unit is destroyed from a gas attack is never carried over to supply located in the sector. The good news, gas does clear over time. At the start of every planning phase, 3 gas tokens are removed from every sector on the board. Gas is a great denial weapon. You can gas a few key sectors in your turn, denying them from the enemy player, knowing by your next turn the gas may clear, allowing your units to rush and grab those strategic sectors. So why not just use gas in every attack? Gas attacks are notoriously unreliable, while also being extremely expensive to organize and support logistically. Anytime a snafu is rolled when making a gas attack, all of the gas tokens from one of your rolled hits or death blows, in that order, are instead placed by your opponent in a sector adjacent to the sector you were targeting. Rolling a couple snafus could see your wall of gas quickly descend on, or block your own forces. In terms of cost and logistics, gas is a despicable, desperate weapon reserved for despicable, desperate times. The most common form of gas delivery is the humble artillery shell. Any artillery unit may be chosen to make a gas attack in place of the unit's regular attack. If it does so, the artillery unit making the gas attack must pay any normal costs for making that attack in supply. However, each time a gas attack is declared, you immediately lower your level on the income tracker board by 2 levels. If the player does not have enough levels on the income tracker board remaining to drop, a gas attack may still be declared. The player sits at the lowest level of the income tracker board, hoping their use of gas may turn their fortunes in the casualty phase. There is a dedicated experimental unit, the Chemical Warfare Division, built entirely around making gas attacks. This unit may only ever make gas attacks, but never lowers the income tracker board when making any gas attacks. We'll cover that more later. That is everything you need to know about tactics cards, fog of war, and making gas attacks. These are your key tools for hiding information, building strategies, and poisoning enemy sectors. Balancing these tools is key to any successful battle.